3 weeks, we are not doing any athletics or choir. At the middle school, I do not believe so. I know at the high school, it's not that they're not doing athletics. They're doing strength and conditioning at the high school. But I could not, Mr. McCullough or Mr. Willoughby, do you know about athletics during the 3 weeks of closure or extra money?
Yeah, let me jump in here because I probably should explain this better when the athletics question was answered earlier. So what's happening is you have a group of students who have opted for virtual learning, and you have a group of students who opted for in-person learning, but because the schools are shut down, they were forced into a virtual learning. So the answer is, if you are in virtual learning, you may not get direct instruction for athletics or choir. However, if you opted for in-person during these first 3 weeks, you have to be virtual because the district's closed. You will be scheduled into classes with the choir teacher and athletics classes, and your classroom schedule will look exactly how it will when you have in-person instruction. So your choir teacher will be there. Now, that instruction may not be the choir teacher in front of you on the camera and we're all going to sing together for 49 minutes. It's going to be much more asynchronous, giving you assignments and practices. Same thing, obviously, the coaches aren't going to stand in front of you and say, okay, show me you're running around the track, but they'll be giving you pointers and opportunities to work out. So there is a difference between if you opted to virtual learning, what electives look like, and what it looks like if you're in in-person learning. And you have to be in virtual because the schools are closed.
Right. If there is any workouts that occur outside of that are coordinated by the coaches will communicate with you directly. So we don't quite have those details ironed out just yet. So thank you, Dr.
And I was going to say, Dr. Ross, I think this next question is for me too. And how will COVID-19 missed special education services be made up? And of course, our goal, of course, is to meet all the IEP goals and objectives as they're written. And we try to have the ARD meetings with the contingency plan. Forgive me, I forgot the exact name of this particular ARD that TEA has asked us to do when the IEPs have to be modified for virtual instruction. However, certainly, as you know, we can always come back to ARD if you feel like you're not getting all your services, and we can have that discussion at that time.
What time does synchronous learning begin each day? Is it at 8:30 like the normal school day? The simple answer to that is yes. But once again, once the schedules, the teacher assignments are made and the schedules are sent out, you will receive information on exactly what time that first period class will start, or what time English will start or math will start. So the children will receive those, well, the parents and the children will receive those instructions. How long will virtual learning be available? The entire school year? Yes. Right now, the Texas Education Agency has made virtual learning available the entire school year if parents want to remain in that learning mode. If we change our minds on whether or not our child can do face-to-face learning, can we change later on? Yes, you'll be able to make that change 2 weeks before the end of the grading period. And the next parent update that goes out will have those specific dates in place. And just a reminder that we need at least a 2-week notice that you're going to send either your child to in-person or from in-person to virtual, so that those schedules can be worked out. And I'm afraid that in the fall, we're probably going to have a lot of that movement in one direction or the other. And once again, just extend us some grace because you're running 2 parallel schedules. And while it may seem easy, it is not, especially when you're trying to maintain a balance with the numbers in the classes. Remember, we're trying to maintain even numbers in our classes, which is a challenge enough during regular times. But now even more so is it's paramount, because obviously we don't want to have a class of 30 in a classroom where you cannot safely distance the children. That would mean that for that particular class period, the children would have to wear their mask the entire 50 minutes because they cannot be safely distanced, and there's no other place in the building where we could spread them out. Now, I'm just giving you a worst case scenario, but once again, It's all tied to when can we change our minds. We need at least that 2-week notice so that we can make those safe accommodations for your children. How many hours are students online for instruction? Arsamani?
I can, just off the top of my head, I'll tell you, I believe it's a minimum of 240 instructional minutes, although I think it's higher for middle school. And when I say 240 minutes, I'm talking about core instruction, and that doesn't necessarily mean minutes in front of the computer exactly. I mean, I should say, it doesn't mean 240 minutes I'm in front of the computer with my teacher watching me. It could be minutes where the teacher hands you and talks to you for 30 minutes, gives instruction, says, now I'd like you to do this assignment for the next 30 minutes. I'll check in with you at the end of the period, or I expect you to turn it in. And I'm giving you that minimum number of minutes. I believe it's much higher. I think it's actually closer to 295 minutes. But I know we were still tweaking some of the schedules, so I don't want to try to give you an exact number, but that kind of gives you the idea of time. And then, of course, depending on your elective choices, that could be extended, not quite to a full 8 to 4:30 day, 8:30 to 4 o'clock day, but it's going to be 4 to 5 hours.
Yeah. So I'm going to skip, Dr. Somani, while you're on that, there's a question from Miss Denise. Are teachers going to be on live video with students, or will they record video and send those to the kids? It's a combination, but again, I'll let Dr. Somani.
Sure. Yes, it'll be a combination, but generally speaking, we've chosen a model where you're going to get direct face-to-face classroom instruction for the teachers in the core area classes at middle school. That won't be 100%, but there's going to be a lot of face-to-face interaction. And that came about due to some of the feedback we got from the community and students and teachers actually from the spring, and the need for more structure for middle school students. Surprise, surprise, I have a middle school student. They don't always get online when they're supposed to unless they know they have to get online at a certain time. And so my son waits to the last minute till I get home and say, hey, did you finish everything? And then he runs and starts working everything. Now, I know my child may be the exception, but we learned from a lot of families that they really wanted to have, my child needs math at 2 o'clock. And so that's what we're gonna offer.
Good, thank you. Is volleyball season in full swing for 8th graders? Have they set a date for tryouts? Volleyball season will be in full swing. It's not currently in full swing. And all of the dates for the fall sports have been pushed down. I'm sorry, I've not memorized those dates, but for right now, yes, you can expect a full volleyball season, and you will hear directly from the coaches as to when they can start practice and then when the games will be. We've already answered that one. How will PSAT, TSI, and STAR be done for 8th grade? Well, right now, we know that STAR has not been canceled. The commissioner has been emphatic about the fact that STAR is still in place for the 2021 spring season. Although I can tell you there's a lot of organization in the background taking place, trying to exert political pressure to do away with STAR testing. So we don't know what the outcome of that is going to be. But we know that as of right now, if you ask me the question, are we going to STAR test in the spring? The answer would have to be yes. PSAT, TSI, Dr. Shamani?
Yes, we've elected not to do PSAT in 8th grade and 9th grade this year, simply because we didn't have real assurances of how that might happen from the College Board. And we decided that was just one less thing for us to try to figure out, or for kids to have to worry about whether they have to come in person to a big group and take a test. TSI, there is a way to give the TSI test in a safe manner. We had to give the test for high schoolers, so we've actually already test run that in August. So we do have a way of doing that for any student that's planning on going into the REACH program. So for those of you who don't know, if you want to get into the early college high school program, generally you take the TSI test in the 8th grade to be college ready to be able to take college level classes when you get to high school. So kudos to Mr. De La Cruz for knowing that. So yes, we will have TSI at 8th grade when needed.
Next one is about dyslexia. My child is in dyslexia. How will virtual learning work for her? Will assignments be read to her?
So I think there's a pair of questions in there. Dyslexia, well, first of all, I don't know your child, so you know, dyslexia is obviously it's a spectrum disorder. You can have different areas of weakness with dyslexia and different needs. Speaking very generally, if you have dyslexia direct instruction that's needed with a dyslexia teacher, that will be delivered, I believe, synchronously in some cases. There is a possibility that a teacher from another campus might deliver that instruction at a particular time. We're working out details with that, but I do know the plan has been updated actually this morning. I was looking at it. As far as the assignments go, I think you're asking about what does that look like for accommodations in your regular core classes. What our hope is to help train students on using some of the text-to-speech features. All the assignments we give should be able to be read by the computer to your child, and that way your child can control how fast, reread, how loud, and control all those factors rather than have a staff member read it to your child. At the same time, though, if things aren't working well with that and you have any issues with that, that is definitely a time to reach out to a teacher to express what concern you have along those lines so that we can try to do a workaround. And it wouldn't be the first time we've done that to help out some families with dyslexia. In fact, I'm thinking about one family in particular who couldn't get their text-to-speech to work on the computer. That was an easy one. We actually drove down there and dropped off a new computer for them. But certainly, if this isn't working out for you for any reason, definitely reach out.
Great. Thank you. This is a good question. With all the protests and activism that has happened across the country, has the district developed guidelines in regards to acceptable logos, pictures, slogans on shirts, masks, pin buttons, even virtual backgrounds? It would be good to get that addressed early on and get feedback on the subject before the year starts. So we actually had a long afternoon discussion, troubleshooting, problem solving with all of our administrators just last week on this very topic. Because we are entering an election season. It is a very tense time in our country. But one of the things we've got to remember is that our children from elementary through high school do not leave, they don't leave their civil rights at the door. And one of those protected rights is speech. So it's incumbent upon us, though, as educators, to teach about appropriate speech and about appropriate voice and appropriate demonstration, about appropriate civil discourse. So for us, it's really an opportunity to teach about democracy and what is happening, and not to impart disciplinary infractions or disciplinary consequences for some of these things. However, there are some lines. We have to teach children about the boundaries between what is obscene and what is vulgar and what is profanity and what is not acceptable and what could incite on unnecessary unrest on a campus. And so we're very mindful of this. We can't tell children, for example, once the elections come, you're going to have kids that may wear a mask that say Biden for president. You're going to see some others that say Trump for president. Those are not prohibited items. Now, if kids start getting into a fight because one is wearing a Biden face mask and one is wearing a Trump face mask, then we have to address the fact that they're in a physical verbal confrontation, and that's what we have to address, and we'll address it appropriately and in a way that we can teach. But we do have to be careful with what we prohibit because once again, children have a right to express their opinions, and a lot of times they're going to be expressing the opinions that are at home, but we have to stay within those appropriate boundaries. So I hope that was an acceptable response. I know Dr. Sermani is quite passionate about this subject as a formal social studies teacher, and I know he can probably add a few more sound details.
Nothing other. I think you pretty much covered it, Dr. Thomas. You listened well in our training, so very good.
Yes. For us, it's an opportunity to teach. But along these lines, for our 79 participants that are listening, I want to take this opportunity to let you know about the ERI committee. And ERI stands for Equity, Racism, and Inclusiveness. And it is a district committee that is really looking at us as an entire body and really looking at our practices, at our policies, to make sure that we are equitable and that we do not have racist policies or behaviors or actions in our district, and really looking at what are we doing to include all children and all families. We are an extremely diverse community, which is what is the beauty of Hutto ISD, is the diversity of talent and people and experiences that are moving in. So how do we embrace all of that and make people feel included in a part of our community? So we do have a committee. They're going to be working probably for the next year and a half on really examining everything that we do as a district. And I'm really excited about some of the work that is going to come out of that committee. All right, the next one. Will parents be notified if someone tests positive in the classroom or school? Yes, we have very specific communication protocols. If anyone tests positive for COVID in a school, everyone in the school, staff and parents, will be notified. All communications of that nature are going to come directly from Mr. Robinson. So we have one point person, and if Mr. Robinson's not available, they'll come from our Director of Health and Safety, Ms. Kendra Estes. But we have really streamlined the manner in which we are going to communicate. Now, obviously, for privacy and health reasons, we cannot let you know who tested positive, but all parents and students and families will be notified if someone tests positive. How will lunches, meals look like? During virtual instruction, we have curbside service. So if you qualify for free or reduced lunch, or if you want to come by and buy our lunch, we're going to be providing meals even during the virtual instruction. And the next parent update will have the details of how you will drive up to your particular campus and actually pick up breakfast and lunch. Okay, can you tackle the next one, Mr. Gideon?
Sure. So the current plan is our buses will read the question. Oh, the question is, can I elaborate on seating arrangements to keep bus riders safe? Will there be more buses available for students to be safely spaced out? And then there's a tutoring question that we can punt back to our curriculum folks. Our plan currently is to have no more than 2 students per seat. In the past, we are able, with elementary students, to carry 3. The students will be required to wear masks when they are on the bus, as they get on, as they are seated, while they are riding to school, and all throughout the ride. We will have hand sanitizer at the entrance to the bus. Our drivers will also be wearing masks, and in addition, they will be wearing face shields. And so the idea is to try to, in a very restricted environment, since we can't social distance, and it's not practical to run additional buses, we're gonna wear the masks, and they have the hand sanitizers available as students, on board and off board on the school buses. We may also have some additional opportunities to create some routes as we go, some drop and runs, so we can spread the volume of who we carry to school. But that's the plan as it stands for right now. In addition, those buses will be sanitized before students get on the bus. You probably, some of you may have heard me use the term quaternary. There are some sanitary chemicals that we use that are very, very safe to use in terms of skin contact. And they are applied by an electrostatic tool that is sprayed on the seats, and because of the way the tool works, it applies a negative charge to the chemical as it's being dispensed, so that it not only lands on a surface, but it engulfs a surface. We will treat those buses before each route and after every route. The drivers will be armed with that, and then there'll be the normal sanitation and cleaning processes of our buses that we would do on a daily basis.
Okay.
And did you mention they'll have assigned seats?
Oh, yeah, when they get on the bus, they'll be in assigned seats. They're not going to be permitted to move around. Our student rider safety protocols, which are in place, already kind of cover that. And we'll probably take a little more time as we load and unload, so students are allowed to stay spaced apart as they get on our bus, and I'll say as they exit on the school bus.
Thank you. And then tutoring sessions, Dr. Sermani?
Sure, and in virtual world, tutoring sessions work a lot like they do in normal times. Teachers will have a tutoring time. The only difference is there will be a link to join the teacher in their quote unquote virtual classroom, I guess you could say, and you pop in because you got a question, the teacher is there and the teacher helps you with whatever you need.
Okay. Thank you. The next one also for you, for virtual learning, I saw that electives will not be graded. Will this affect GPA or the A honor rolls?
So it shouldn't affect your A honor roll that I can think of. As far as GPA is concerned, GPA was just is something that's special and unique to high school. So as far as middle school is concerned, the only GPA you have to worry about is algebra and Spanish. And it won't affect GPA because those are two courses that you are going to get a GPA grade. The rigor of the assignments is going to be the same as it is in person. And so it won't affect it any differently than it would have if you were in person.
Question from Ms. Rogers, will we have Zoom meetings with teachers for them to explain the assignments? Yes, that'll be part of Meet the Teacher Night. And then again, before we really get into the core of instruction, there will be teachers will take that time to explain how assignments are going to work virtually for your students. And again, you can always, if you need a do-over, you need to see it again, or it wasn't quite clear to you, it's a matter, we're gonna have to stay very close to our teachers and ask for those clarifications. And I know that they'll be happy to help you with any questions that you have. What is the current percent of face-to-face versus virtual learning at this moment? We have 42% of, 42% of our families have elected virtual instruction, which means we have 68% of the kids coming in person if we're able, 58, sorry. 58 coming in person on September the 8th. When will TSI be offered again for high school students?
And I'm not sure of that. However, the high school counselors are back on duty and they're the ones who schedule the TSI on a regular basis for the high school students. So I encourage you to reach out to I assume you have a high school student, to reach out to the high school counselors and ask them when's the next regularly scheduled test.
Okay. Thank you. If we did not complete the most recent survey indicating we will start in person starting September the 8th, can we change our mind to virtual only up until the 8th? What is the final date? So if you did not tell us you wanted virtual learning by this Monday, August 3rd, then we're assuming that you're going to bring your children to us in person on Tuesday, September the 8th. The next time to change your mind is going to be 2 weeks before the end of the first grading period. And that's sometime in early September, early mid-September. And once again, we'll get those specific dates out to you. So it's 2 weeks before the end of the first grading period if you want to make a change from virtual to in-person or from in-person to virtual. Will parents be notified if someone tests positive in a classroom or school? Yes. You will be notified if anybody tests positive in a school. You will be, and if there is something particular to a classroom, you will receive a second notification. So there will be a general notification to everyone in a school if someone tests positive. If your child was in a classroom with a person who tested positive, and based on the contact tracing process that we follow, if your child is going to be compromised in any way, if your child came in direct contact with another person, that tested positive and they were in direct contact with that person without a face covering for at least 15 to 20 minutes or more, then your child could possibly be compromised, but you will receive a specific communication about that. So two, one for everybody, just to let you know somebody tested positive, but if your child is compromised in any way, you will get a second communication along with the general one. If you never signed up for either online or to be in person, so the survey was out for almost a month, and the instructions on that survey were, let us know if you're coming, if you want virtual instruction. If you don't fill out the survey, we're going to assume that you want in-person instruction.
Just a quick plug for, we have noticed there are quite a few, even at the middle school level, where parents have selected virtual instruction, but we have no registration or know who the student is in our computer systems. So I just want to remind everyone out there that the survey does not take the place of registration. So if you have not registered for school, meaning you've never been in Hutto ISD schools before, please contact your campus so they can get you set up and registered.
All right, yes, good reminder. Will class sizes be reduced in order to accommodate that 6-foot spacing requirements, and how many students per classroom? No, the class sizes will not be reduced. Now, we are looking, once again, I know our principals are trying their very best to keep classes as balanced as possible, but not all classes are going to have exactly 18 students or exactly 25 students. It just depends on how many children have selected that particular class and how the scheduling falls out. If a 6-foot spacing cannot be accommodated in a classroom and we cannot relocate that classroom and we're not able to use hallway space, if we're not able to use any other space around us in order to space the children properly apart, then for that particular class period, then the children will have to wear masks. Not all day, but for that class period where we cannot safely distance. Again, our principals are trying to do their best with leveling, but sometimes it just does not work out. Who are the ERI committee members? How were members selected? Is it district employees? Primarily the ERI committee members are primarily community, but we do have district employees and students represented on that committee. I don't know all the names off the top of my head. There's 22 people on the committee. It's heavy on the community side. Yes, but we do have teachers on the committee, and we have district staff on the committee, and we have students and parents. Yes. Does the district sell face shields or masks with the school logo? If so, when can we buy them? No, we have lots of groups out there who are selling them with the school logo. I couldn't tell you who they are.
Volleyball.
Volleyball is selling them.
Let's go volleyball.
We know that there's several PTA groups that have started selling those as fundraisers. But I know that once the different groups have them, they'll start pushing that information out to the parents of that particular school. And we can also put them on the website when we hear about them, we get that information out. If students are to do the STAR test, what regulations will be put in place to ensure that students use our authorized sources? Well, that is part of the test security problem that the state is going to have to help us figure out. And yes, that's far into the distance, but just like the start of school is around the corner, we couldn't imagine this date back in March. I know that April and May of 2021 will be here sooner than we know it. That is part of what we're going to have to regulate. So I couldn't tell you how that's going to work right now, but I know that the state is aware of the strict security measures that have to be put in place for that testing to take place. Will in-person elective classes be graded? Yes, they will. Dr. Money? Yes. Okay, yeah, That's just a yes.
They're regular old classes, just like you would expect them to be with grades and everything.
Okay. You want to tackle the next one? If you're going to be absent or miss a class period, how would the student make up for that lost time? Will the classes be recorded?
So if you're in a virtual environment and you're going to be absent, it's just like missing class you would in person. You want to notify the campus and the teacher and say, I'm going to miss, and if you have a note because you're the doctor or something, yes, please send it in. The one thing that's unique about this virtual environment, if you're in the virtual environment, whether this first 3 weeks or you opted in, is that you could actually get counted present if you do your assignments later on in the evening and do the makeup work right away. The state has given us some flexibility. So say you have a class at 9 o'clock, you have a doctor's appointment at 9 o'clock, take your child to the doctor's appointment, they miss the class, they hop on later on at 5 o'clock, watch the video of the class, or see the assignment, do the assignment, turn it in. The teacher the next day will actually see that your child had logged in and done work and done it successfully, and we're allowed to go back and mark the child present again, because even if they did the work after normal school hours. So that's the only change really in how we're recording absences during for virtual learners.
Yeah. So will the classrooms be sanitized between class periods? Yes, you bet. That is going to be part of the protocols, part of the procedures that we're building in place. Now, in a secondary classroom, we are going to have the kids help us with the sanitation because I think it's unreasonable. It wouldn't be enough time for a teacher to have to literally wipe down 20 or 30 desks in a classroom before the next period. So the kids will wipe before they leave. That when they come into the classroom, they're going to sanitize their hands before they touch anything. There'll be specific procedures in place for the children as they move in and out of classrooms. But yes. If someone tests positive, will parents have the option to change to virtual learning before a 6-week period? No, not necessarily. We can't do that. It would be very difficult to switch from one day to the next. Remember, I was trying to explain how we need that 2-week leeway to make an assignment. Once again, if your child is affected in any way because of that positive test, we're going to let you know, and we will work with you. If you need to quarantine or the child needs to stay home, we will work so that the child can continue learning and they don't miss out on their assignments. Can you please send out the survey link? The survey link to select virtual instruction it's closed for now. I'm so sorry. Should we wait for band instruments and pre-athletic uniforms until kids can go to school in person?
I know the band teachers would love for you to get the instrument and keep practicing and start learning. But if you're asking, it's necessary if you're if you have opted for virtual learning, no, you don't, it's not necessary. Now, if you opted for in-person learning, then these 3 weeks, then yes, you're going to have some interaction with those teachers. You probably need the instrument. I don't necessarily think you need the pre-athletics uniform until you go back to actual in-person though.
Yeah. As far as the pre-athletic uniforms, I mean, you can buy them right now and then you've got them whenever we start in person. You've got tax-free weekend coming out. I would take advantage of any sales that are coming up, but obviously you're not going to need them until you're ready to go in person. Ms. De La Cruz, you must know middle school students. Dr. Shamani and I were both middle school principals, so we know middle school kiddos. So if a student chooses not to follow safe distancing and starts coughing on other people, how will this be handled? And once again, if this is a deliberate action, this is why you've got your teachers and administrators in place. But here's the expectation. If students are going to come in person, they have to follow the safety guidelines. They have to abide by them. And that's going to be part of our messaging when we come back in person. is that in order for us to continue to exist together and to continue to have school open, we all have to abide by the safety rules. My safety is your safety, and vice versa. So that's going to be day one, is going to be all about safety. If a student mocks another student for wearing masks, hey, we're all wearing masks. Mocking any type of making fun of others, that's something that we need to address. When we see it, we're going to address it as an adult. That's just not going to be appropriate. So this is not a matter of you're going to wear a mask if you want to. This is everyone must, even us as adults, we must wear our masks. And, or to start to promote propaganda of fake COVID-19. And you know, people have their stances about COVID-19, about whether it's fake or just some sort of a political move. It doesn't matter. We know the health cases, we know data. We can all see the Williamson County dashboards. We can all see the Travis County dashboards. People are dying. This is real. You can't dispute data out there about what's happening to people. Even today, we as in our superintendent group, the superintendent from Flower Bluff, which is a school district in South Texas, the superintendent was 46 years old. He passed away from COVID-19 complications. And so part of our messaging is teaching children about what this disease is and how it spreads and why it's important to wear our face coverings, because it's a prevention method. That's how we're going to keep each other safe. So it's all part of the messaging. It's part of the education, just like with the elections and what's happening in our country. This is an opportunity to teach. Now, if a child absolutely refuses to comply, then we will have to call the parents, and they may have to select remote instruction at the next grading period. And in the meantime, they're going to be isolated, working out of an ISS classroom until they can go to a virtual classroom at the end of the grading period. That would not be a very positive experience. So if you're going to send the children to school, we all have to work together. Parents, help us in delivering that message that when we're on campus, we all have to be safe and do what is asked of us, so that we can finish out the school year and not have positive cases out there. If we didn't complete the surveys, there still be an option to sign up for virtual learning. Yes, you can sign up for virtual learning at the end of the first grading period, or you can let us know 2 weeks before the end of the first grading period. Will instruction be recorded in the event that the student is absent? That way they can make up the work. Yeah, and I think Dr. Sharmani answered that question a little bit earlier. Yes. If someone tests positive at the school, will parents be given the choice to quarantine their child for 2 weeks if they were in contact with an individual? So once again, if someone tests positive at the school nurse and our director of health and safety, they have a protocol that they follow strictly, and they determine which children are going to be affected. And you will be notified that your child may have been compromised, and that we recommend that they be quarantined for X number of days. So you will receive that communication directly from us. So once again, our nurses have been trained, and they have a specific process that they're going to follow anytime this happens. Upon confirmation of a positive COVID test, will there be quarantines in place? Yes, they will. And what are the protocols for teachers and students in this scenario? Once again, anytime there is an infection or someone has been compromised, if that particular classroom or classrooms are going to be quarantined. And so in that case, now you've got entire groups of kids going to virtual instruction. The teacher, if they're not ill in any way, if they're able to continue with the instruction continues even during the quarantine period. And we do have contingency plans in place in case that teacher is not able to deliver instruction. We'll find a way so that the children don't continue to lose their learning. Now, right now, if we have, once you get to a 10% infection rate on any given campus, then the whole campus would have to be shut down for at least a 14-day period. Those number of days could vary just depending on the severity. But that's kind of our touch point right now. When we get to a 10% infection rate on a campus, it shuts down. Whenever you have 2 or more students affected in one classroom, then that entire classroom is also shut down. Have the school nurses received additional training and so forth in how to treat suspected COVID cases with the school community? Yes, they have. So we have a very talented director of health and safety. She is an RN herself. She oversees all of the nurses. And yes, they have been trained. They have full protective gear available at their disposal. They're ready to see kiddos whenever we get, whenever we have that opportunity.
In case the question was, we won't be treating at school, but
Right.
we will have response protocols to isolate and to assist families. But children who are infected are not going to be allowed in school, so there's no treatment in school.
Right. Okay, that's a good clarification point from Mr. Gideon, is that we don't treat. There's no treatment at school. There's mitigation, and there's identification, and there's contact with the parents. As children, if they start getting ill, obviously our nurses are trained in screening the children and in making a determination. Might call mom and dad and say, I think there's enough symptoms here that your child needs to be seen by a medical professional. But yes, they have their protocols that they're following. What type of safety guidelines are going to be in place for students changing classes in middle school? So right now, with 42% of the families selecting remote instruction, it's been pretty even with our middle schools. You already have 40% fewer students in our hallways. So as far as changing classes, you're going to have fewer kids in the hallways. Part of the safety guidelines is that we mask up. All of the water fountains are going to be shut down, so there's no opportunity to touch those common areas. It's about sanitation. The kids are going to sanitize before they leave a classroom. They're going to sanitize before they enter a classroom. As far as hallways and door handles, anything that is touched frequently, our custodians are going to be constantly wiping down and sanitizing commonly used areas. So they also have a checklist procedure that they follow anytime children have occupied these large common areas and in between classes.
You might mention that we are replacing the water fountains with the bottle fillers and to encourage parents to send bottled water as well as their own reusable bottle fillers.
Okay, were you able to hear Mr. Gideon? You heard him? Yes? Okay.
So kids will have access to water.
Yes.
We're just shutting down the old traditional ones.
Okay.
And replacing with bottle fillers.
Yes. So parents, that's one of the things to add when we're ready to return to in-campus instruction is water bottles for our kids. They will have the opportunity to fill up the water bottles, but the old-fashioned water fountains where you press the button and you reached over and took a drink, those are no longer available. All right, we're at 6:31, so I'm going to do a couple more, and then we'll review any of the ones we didn't get to. And if we have not addressed those in our frequently asked questions on the website, we will make sure that we add them. Is there going to be information sent home to parents, band and pre-athletics? My son's going into 6th grade, and we are not aware of what he needs and the rules for the uniforms. Yes, you will. All of that communication will come out from our band directors and from our coaches at the middle school. And I know our principals in the background are making notes of all of these reminders for their staff, so we'll make sure that we get that out. And remember, our teachers are reporting to work for the very first time tomorrow. Extend a little grace tomorrow and Thursday. They're trying to get ready for the onslaught of communications that they're going to have to prepare to send out. And I'm sure that they're going to receive in return. I think we addressed that question about what class we're going to reduce classes. Once again, we are staffed according to the number of students that we have in a building. So, and the only way to reduce classes is by hiring additional teachers, and that's just not part of the budget. You hire teachers according to the number of students that you receive. So, for example, at the elementary, we staff at 1 to 22. At 5th grade, at 1 to 25. At the middle school and high school, we staff at 1 to 28. And so that's how we determine the number of teachers that go into a building. So in order to reduce the number of students per you would have to hire an army of them in order to bring class sizes down in the teens. And it's just not economically feasible at this time. So our best response to pandemic and the students that we're going to receive is working within the safety guidelines. We can do this. If we sanitize, I love what Henry Gideon always says, that we're going to beat this pandemic with soap and water. And really, if we adhere to keeping ourselves clean, and keep ourselves from breathing respiratory droplets and masking up and keeping our distance from one another, we can do this. I think the best place for our kids right now is in the schools, because we've got the ability to teach, we've got the ability to prevent, to mitigate, and we have the ability to respond. That's part of our safety plan. We have notification systems in place. We have prevention measures in place. We have a plan for responding to what's going to happen, and we have a plan for mitigating and picking up and going. Are we going to have positive cases? Yes, we are. I wish I could tell you that we're not. We are going to have positive cases, but how we respond and how we pick ourselves up and how we mitigate and continue going is going to be the answer whether we can continue with our in-person instruction or not. And I just have faith in this Hippo Nation community that we can do it. All right, last one. If children are in 7th grade, do we need to register and provide an immunization record? Yes. If you are new to the district, we need for your child to register and provide an immunization record. Key information. All right, folks, it's 6:35. I know my team has some other appointments to get to. We don't want to.
I did put the registration link on there if somebody wants to grab it before we
okay.
Look a little about them. And then also the coronavirus.OISD.net for questions.
Okay, yes. So there's a registration link down there if you need to register. Folks, we will get to your other questions, we promise. We thank you so much for joining us and giving us this opportunity. Watch for more superintendent table talks. I know once we get school going, you're going to have even more questions once school is underway. So watch for further opportunities to dialogue with us. And even if we don't have a superintendent table talk, you have our email addresses. You have the email at coronavirus@huttoisd.net. Feel free to utilize that and we'll be happy to get back to you. All right, thank you everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thank you principals and thank you leadership team. Appreciate you being with us.